Hello, Deep Mindfulness Collective. My name is Janusz, and this right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream. Oops, over here. Where is that? Oh, it's the joy of being. Oh no, it's the joy of being a live stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York, and we're mostly hosting this here on Twitch.tv. Although we're doing a bit of a special selection these last few days. We are hosting this on YouTube too. So, folks, let us know. Let us know how you're doing, folks on YouTube, folks on Facebook too. Holy crap, we have people everywhere. Tumlin, hello. Sher Khan, hello. Welcome. Nice to have you here. That doesn't say welcome. I like keeping my spelling mistakes in there. Keeps things fun. Welcome, folks. Great to see everybody. So yeah, how are people doing? What's going on? What's new? What's happening? What's the news? Folks, very excited to be here today. It's a very special day. We have something new for you. We're going to be meditating. That's right. Meditation. Ned, welcome here from Bristol, England. Lovely to see you there. We have a number of England folks. With my American geography, that should mean that you guys are all like, literal next door neighbors, right? No audio. No audio. Let's see. Someone's reporting no audio. Let me know if that's universal or if that's just one person. I hope that's not just something universal because that would really mess us up. But it looks like audio should be coming through. John from Queens, welcome. Good to see you. Folks, let me know if you're hearing audio. If you're not, then we'll fix that. But we should be. It's monitoring that there is audio. So, okay. So someone, Ned Telfair, who said they're from England, Bristol, England, says they can hear me fine. So I don't know how to tell Sher Khan to fix the sound because he can't hear me. Okay. So will someone put in the chat, actually? I don't want to spend time typing this. I guess he can see that the audio says it's good, and so that kind of thing. Maybe he'll just check and see if his speakers are plugged in. Welcome, folks. So, folks, we're going to be continuing our process looking at the multiple self model, which we've been looking at for some time now. But I've just been hitting such a stride with guiding students and guiding people one-on-one and in classes and stuff that it's been so... it feels like it's been like a hot topic, not like that it's popular, everyone's talking about it, which in my world they are, because it's me and my wife, we talk about it all the time. But also that in terms of the meditation, it feels like there's a lot of a sense of innovation, a sense of like things working out really well. So I want to dive into that. Nick here from Karlstad, welcome. Good to see you here. Landon from sunny California, lovely. Here across the coast there. Lovely. So let's see, what else? So we will meditate for 25 minutes and then we'll have a chance to chat. We're going to open up the Zoom line so that folks can call in and talk about their experience and share in that way. And that way we'll have a little bit of a voice interaction. Saivash from Tehran, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you here. And P.S. folks, we want to have a vote here. And the thing is, I have a feeling which way people are going to vote. We're going to either stay on Twitch or we might move over to YouTube. I have a feeling that everyone on each of their own platforms is going to say they prefer this platform because otherwise you wouldn't be there. So my question is not which platform should we stay on or move to. The question, hey, Gabriel, great to see you. It's so nice to see you here. I saw you on the... in a group message thing or a group video thing recently, but now to see you on the video, so lovely. If people would be annoyed, let's say that, if it moved to a different platform. So if you're on Twitch, would you be annoyed if it moved to YouTube? If you're on YouTube, would you be annoyed if it switched entirely to Twitch? And just be honest. Tell me honestly, and then this is how it works. So the fewest annoyed people will win this vote. Lovely to see you here. We have a few people joining from Facebook. The other option is just we stream everywhere. That's the other thing. Now that we can actually get everyone's chats in here, that's lovely. So, folks, we are going to. That's the backstory. Is that we moved from YouTube because they were hitting us with all of these. What's it called? I think either way, we might have a backup. They're hitting us with all these claims. copyright claims. I don't know if folks know this. We're getting hit with copyright claim after copyright claim for all this ridiculous stuff. We actually got copyright claimed for nothing. Literally, they copyright claimed us for silence in the guided meditation, saying someone else has already published this data, and it's like, oh my God, like you can't, like it feels so Big Brother, like it feels so like, 1984. If the like silence is not allowed, it's like we control the silence. So it was just like at some point I was like, we got to move to a better platform. Twitch is just live streaming. That's all they do. So right now the setup is we live stream to Twitch mainly, and then we put the playbacks on our second YouTube channel. But we just had all these great people on, etc. We wanted, and we had the what is it called? We did the retreat. So we started putting on our main YouTube channel, which is usually more edited stuff. Anyway, we're just trying to jostle around. If people have ideas or different thoughts or whatever, just let us know. We're trying to make it as fun and easy and accessible for you without flooding our main YouTube channel with like endless playbacks. So right now, just so you know, if you want to watch the playbacks for these, they're going to exist on our second YouTube channel, youtube.com/deepmindfulness, the number 2. So folks, we're going to meditate for 25 minutes. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's impossible. No human has ever survived a 25-minute meditation. But I tell you what, you can do it. And not only can you do it, but if you decide to do it, I would highly suggest that you stick with it, even if it's uncomfortable. Often that uncomfortable part where you're like, I got to get up, I got to do a thing, is an indication you're about to have a breakthrough. So as we begin here, we got so much happening in the chat here. Okay, I'm going to look back and see what people, what's it called? See what people say about the decision to potentially move. But okay, yes, exactly. We're trying to name the live streams as well. We're doing our best to name them correctly. It's been a challenge too because they always show up as just playback. So okay. We're going to meditate here for 25 minutes, and what I'm going to encourage people to do in order to stay comfortable is to arrange yourself well so you don't have to move physically for the duration of the sit. That's pretty important. If we move during the sit, that often causes the mind to become distracted. So arrange the body well. We often do this by sitting so that the knees are lower than the hips. These are the hips. Knees are lower than the hips, even if just slightly. This allows the lower back to do its natural curve and the upper back to do its natural curve, balancing on the two, so the two kind of balance on each other. If the knees are higher than the hips, or even if the hips are parallel, this part of the back becomes strained and it feels good for a little while. You'll notice that's the shape of most chairs, is curved at the lower back, and it's very uncomfortable after just a little bit of time. Let's see here. Wonderful. So finding that nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit, having some final sips of your beverage. Today I'm drinking some lemonized, alkalized, mineralized water. I can talk more about that if anyone gives a crap. So finding that nice comfortable position. Folks, before we begin, I just want to say it is so lovely to be here with you. It really is. It really makes my day that much special. That much more special that you are here. No joke. Okay. Zen sauce. Exactly. This is my Zen juice. So finding that nice comfortable position. And we will begin. Oh, before we begin, fair warning, the drilling is back in full effect. If folks aren't used to this live stream, man, we spent, 6 months or something like that with this drilling, and you'll hear it. It's going to come back. I wish I could stop it. We actually get it out of the recordings. We have audio stuff to take it out after, but live it's there. They're redoing the facade of the building. Luckily, some people are back at work, which is good for them. But for our purposes, it's going to be a little bit buzzy. But this is a tradition here, is to work through the process of listening to and hearing the buzzing. The good thing is we're going to be looking at selfing, and self that arises often wants something to be different. It craves or clings or pushes against reality. So when the drilling arises, it's actually very useful. Notice that some part of the self is like, I don't like that. This meditation should be like X. And that's good. It'll typically pull us into an experience of self. And we're talking about self as the part of our body-mind system, the part of our perceiving that experiences the world as coming or happening to this being. So that's what the world is. It's sort of, you can look around right now and say, okay, this is the experience of self. It's happening, the world happening to me. And it's helpful to know that's only one perspective. That's not actually a universal perspective. So when the drilling comes, that's going to happen. And we'll begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths. And just feeling the body rise and fall. We'll begin by sweeping through the body to be sure we're not holding any undue tension. So starting at the top of the head, relax the brow. Relax the muscles behind the eyes. Allowing the face to go smooth. Relax the back of the tongue. And allow the jaw to go slack. In each of these phases of relaxing, we're letting each of these parts of the body succumb to gravity just a little bit. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders. The upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and relaxing the hands. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, just letting the body breathe as it will. And noticing the natural tightening and relaxing of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and the lower back. Relaxing the hips and the upper legs. The knees and calves. The ankles and relaxing the feet. And we'll begin by observing the experience of the breath. There may be some part of the mind that tells us this particular breath sensation is nothing new. We've experienced it many times. So we're just going to ignore that part of the mind and let this precise breath sensation at this precise moment letting it be the most important thing in our world. We can use a mental label each time we detect the breath. We can use the mental label this, referring to this precise crossroads, this precise sensation in this precise instant. Each time we notice this, just labeling that in the mind, saying the word, soaking into that experience, and starting the process over. Again, looking for this, letting the definition be new each time. And of course, distraction will arise. This is quite natural. So anything that is not this particular sensation of the breath at this particular moment, we can simply label not this. It's not our enemy, it's not a problem. Letting the words lead us right back to this. What's arising? It's not this. and over again, just arranging the parts of this simple game. The challenge itself is the simplicity, just this. Over and over again, noticing, yes, I've been drawn to not this. If there's judgment or annoyance or frustration, it's fine. Recognizing that as not this. And returning to this. Now we're going to make a slight transition, letting go of any particular breath awareness. The breath may be there, but we don't have to focus on that in particular. And opening up to all of not this. All sensing together. In this way, opening awareness to include all the sense data. Seeing, hearing, and feeling as one big category. Now we're going to observe a particular subset of our sensing experience. And that's the experience of self, what we ordinarily refer to as me or I. Typically, this is experienced as the person or character that all of the world's events happen to. The main character of this narrative of life. And usually that's located as an experience of something in the chest or behind the eyes. In the mind, we can play this up. We can say, this is happening to me. This is happening to me right now. These are my experiences. Just to notice what that's like. Where it seems this experience is located. And it tends to seem like it's located at what this mind perceives as the center. Not only does the mind produce this sense of a self, but it produces that self as though it were appearing in the center of our universe. This is quite convenient for survival and for passing on genetic material. But just noticing in this moment that the self-experience tends to occur in this particular place, tends to feel somewhat tighter than a nice large open awareness. It's not worse, it's just more organized in a particular area. Noticing that this self isn't a different type of material, it's still just sense data. It's just a bit more localized. Now opening up to all of awareness again, all of our sensing experience. Letting the self be present, but letting it be present among all of the other sense data. Looking for the part of our experience that doesn't need anything to be different, that doesn't have preference. And this is the experience of awareness. And this may or may not be available. And so whatever phase of selfing or non-selfing is present, whether it feels like a solid central self or there's some connection with a larger, less dense awareness, just recognizing these as natural. They're simply different arrangements. Different densities of perception, of sensing. And noticing that awareness doesn't have preference. This tends to mean that selfing experiences do have preference. So if we're experiencing preference, it's likely that we're experiencing that as some kind of self. And if we're experiencing some kind of self, it's likely being triggered or arising because of some often unconscious preference. That part of us is wanting something to be different, maybe wanting a distraction to go away, wanting time to move differently, wanting more comfort or less discomfort. And recognizing that this wanting is natural. It's not a problem. And experiencing that wanting or selfing simply in the context of other sense data, the part of us that doesn't need anything to be different. If there's wanting or selfing, of course, recognizing that as nature, simply expressing itself in the form of human wanting or human selfing. So much of life is experienced as a self that wants or needs something, often something to be different. So not needing to resolve that desire, not needing to get rid of it or fulfill it. Simply recognizing that shape of human experience as natural, just like all of our other senses. And staying with the practice, staying in stillness. We'll end the formal meditation when the bell goes silent. Noticing if simply hearing these words creates within the body-mind a craving for time, a craving for a silent bell. even a subtle one. And so often these forces of craving can't see that what they're looking for is in some way already present. At this moment, the bell is silent. Allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes, eventually allowing them to rest on a single point as they fully open. And observing whatever selfing is arising, whatever awareness is arising, a mix between the two. And simply recognizing them as nature. Okay. Lovely. Karen says, thank you for the practice. Nick has to jump off for his aunt's 50th birthday. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining. Let's see. So folks, each time we end one of these practices, I ask the same question. What was that like? What happened? And what do you like now? I'm always hoping that someone will answer that question quite literally. And in those three places, what were you like? What happened? And what do you like now? And let me know. Let me know in the chat here what that was like. I'm going to be starting my first in non-adolescence Dungeons and Dragons game soon. So it's been in my mind, this whole character creation, self-creation. And it's interesting because there's a lot of self tied into this character creation, this character that I'm inventing. And what is that self-experience? What's that like? Exploring those different facets. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so let me know. And I'm going to put the link to the Zoom in here. Oh, well, thank you so much. We have a follow here. Where are we? We have a follow from Trashnomancer. Thank you so much for your follow. Very nice of you to follow us. If folks don't know, if you're here on Twitch, you can follow, and what that does is lets us know that you're following, obviously, and it also gives us a sense of gives you an ability to get updates. If you're on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button and the bell icon, and that'll tell you when we either put out a new video or we go live. Thank you so much for that. Let's see here. Gabriel, we are accepting donations. Let me put let's put our Patreon in here. Patreon.com it should be. That should be correct. If that's not correct, let me know. And let me put real quick the Zoom thing in here. Zoom thing. Let me start a Zoom meeting. don't know if anyone's ever heard of Zoom, but it's this thing that was invented during a global pandemic, and now exists everywhere. It's so funny how they make it so... I've done this a million times. They make it so hard to invite people. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. So... there we go. So, take a peek there. If you want to jump on our Zoom, we can chit-chat like kitty cats. Be happy to chat with you about your experience. Often we can get into a little more detail when people are voice style. Veritable Vagabond says, hey, I liked it. I liked it, and I look forward to not liking it. Oh, you look forward to not liking it. Okay, question. Is the secret to awakening not pushing away any sense of self? So, it's a tough question, because in a way it's like this. I want to talk about it from like layers of like awareness. You know that scene in which one's the one that the new Star Wars movie that everyone hates, the middle one, The Last Skywalker. You know that point where she's in the cave? I don't know if you've seen this. She's in a cave and there's like these mirror reflections of her in every direction, and she can see every single one, and she moves and every single one of them moves. It's not that she's not there. It's not that she doesn't move. It's not that she doesn't make decisions. It's that there's a reflection and a recognition that it's not more than it is. It's not something other than it is. So if a self-experience arises, like let's zoom out to like the most rudimentary. A self-experience arises, let's say in a 10-year-old, because it's easier. Younger children is actually even more complex because it's less happening. So a 10-year-old self arises. There's very often very little sense that there is any other view of reality than that view of reality. It's like, this is what's happening, and it's hard to convince them otherwise. Hey, there's other possibilities of this view of reality. We have that all the time. We are constantly subtly thinking, this is me, this is my world. One step outside of that is to recognize, okay, this is my perspective and this is your perspective. And that's a skill that's very useful for psychological coherence, is what's called mentalizing, to be able to see that our mind is viewing and thinking, and to see other people's minds are viewing and thinking, and to be able to see from those different perspectives. So I can think about what you're thinking about. If we're doing this unconsciously, it can feel like self-consciousness, and we're not aware that I'm worried about what you're thinking about me, which can be pretty problematic. So that's another level, is to be able to view the world from my perspective and to see other people's perspective. And you can see how this plays into the meditation, because we're often navigating these different levels. So my experience, other people's experience. Another level to experience that from is to recognize this sort of universality. Self is simply arising in this system, in your system. It's preferring, it's pushing, it's pulling, and that's natural too. So when you say, is the secret to awakening not pushing away any sense of self, I would say the simplest complex answer that I can give, forgive me, is no. Actually, I want to just check real quick if people aren't like waiting on Zoom. Okay, no one's here on Zoom. That's fine. That the simplest question is, it's to know, to be aware of these things that are arising and would normally be experienced as unconscious, and to have those be innately conscious. All of these different experiences, the flow of sensory data, the self arising, the awareness that can observe that self, the sort of movement between these two things, to recognize them as nature, not something to be gotten rid of, and not something to be fought against or eliminated in some way. Yes, so that's hopefully that helps clarify that question. But that's a great question, by the way. Thank you so much, Veritable Vagabond. Landon says, perception. As the practice progressed, self, not so much about ego. What the quote, I wanted, or what I didn't want, but more about the organizing intelligence, guiding the process of practice, moment to moment. That's great. And so that's a slightly less identified relationship to a self. There's a doer, but it's not necessarily I am the doer. There's a lot of like these different sort of functions that the body mind moves through, and there's often this sense that I am that function. So I am the doer. I am the thinker. I am the, one who feels the emotions and takes the action, etc. Versus that these are all functioning. I mean, even the fact that there's the identification function, there's a sense that, well, that is mine, that belongs to me. When actually everyone has one, it's not very original or unique, and it's just a function that's occurring whether we try to have it be there or not. So that's great. That's a I would say a little bit wider view of the experience of self. Let's see here. Liz, welcome back. Liz, good to see you here. Observer self is trying to grab a rainbow. You never quite get it exactly. And that's the thing, that once you start looking at this, realizing that this experience of self is always, it's like, oh, just one more thing of, the bigger examples are like, oh, if I just get this new iPhone, then it'll be okay. And we sort of see these big, gross, larger examples. Or if I just get this job or something, oh, that didn't work out. Or we kind of see these bigger things. But also on this very subtle perceptual level, on this very granular level, the system is almost universal, not almost universally, but very often leaning forward. Oh, there's one thing. The drilling was perfect for that, because even though I didn't, the self that seemed to be most predominant didn't want it to be different, I could sense my system going, no, somewhere inside. So it wasn't that I wanted it to be different. I could sense the system wanted it to be different, clearly wanted it to be different. So that's great. Let's see here. Ned says, I was excited. I experienced the selfing as an outside, from an outside perspective. Now I am calm and alert. Lovely. So that outside perspective is what we talk a little bit about as far as mentalizing, but it's also that awareness. What we're talking about is, sometimes we talk about it as zoomed out, but awareness is the part of our mind that doesn't need anything to be different. It just knows the experience, whatever the experience is. It's known. And this can sound very ethereal and like, what do you mean? But notice every sensory experience that you have, it is known by the mind. So it's like, can you tell that I'm making a sound? Right? Yeah, the mind knew that. It was very clear. It's like, yes, I know. And it has this knowing experience. So that's the awareness, but it doesn't need anything to be different. So when we can detect that there is some part of us that needs something to be different, often it's an indication that there's a self-active or some leaning towards or pushing away of something, which is, again, is not bad. We don't want to demonize this. It's a natural manifestation. But to see it in context, it no longer has as much gravitational pull. So that's what you're describing. The calmness and alertness is actually a result of not needing to have that need fulfilled. It's just stepping outside. Oh, look, there is a need occurring. And suddenly there's relief. And that is a lot of the path of awakening, is recognizing that we don't have to be pulled into these gravitational wells, and to recognize they're going to occur, but they don't have to be us. Sher Khan says, I was anxious. The meditation was a relaxing experience, and afterwards I became sleepy. Well, that's another natural experience. So there it is. Let's see. Zoom existed prior to the pandemic. I know, Rory. I was just being silly. Landon says, at the end of the practice, I felt like I could just transition into feeling this organizing intelligence. I could just transition into feeling this organizing intelligence could stay in the driver's seat. Well, what you're describing in Shinzen's language, Shinzen's one of our main teachers, if people don't know, is the auto function. It is the organizing, the part that just organizes stuff for us. We actually don't even need to be there. And this is something that if we observe it carefully can actually be a little scary. We just observe, like, sit here and don't meditate. You don't need to do anything, and realize, like, the system keeps going. It doesn't even need what we call you. It doesn't need you to be there. It just keeps going and functioning and going and functioning. It's like, oh God. And it can actually feel sort of terrifying if we really let go, or recognize the system in a way doesn't need us. But it's also, once we get past the fear, right? Because the fear is another sort of piece of self being like, oh God, what am I going to do? There's some unmet need. There's incredible relief, which is what Ned was describing. I actually don't need to be here for this. I don't need to control any of this. This system just occurs and I can live through that. That is not to say that we aren't active politically, or we don't take action in our lives, we don't take care of our kids. Outside action is different than internal perception. We can have both. Let's see here. Rory says, thanks, Janos. Appreciate your direction. Gotta go soon. Wondering if you attempt to hold attention on the breath at the point of transition. Thanks. Okay, I want to make sure I understand this. Gotta go. Wondering if you attempt to hold attention on the breath at the point of transition. Thanks. I don't know which point of transition you're referring to. So if you clarify that, I will answer that question. Thank you, Rory. Ned says, I also felt the difference between unaware self and being aware of self. Hey, listen, that is a very elegant linguistic trick you just did there. So, and I would refine it just slightly. It doesn't sound quite as awesome, but like basically unawareness function. Actually, you could say like unawareness. You observed unawareness and awareness of self. Right, so there's the unaware sort of like drifting away, whatever, and then there's an awareness of that self occurring. You can even have awareness of the unaware self occurring. You can be observing, yes, and watching the mind getting distracted. There it is. It's starting to fizzle and bubble away. Like, of course, that makes sense. And just the awareness of that is bright enough that often it can keep that from sort of taking over. Because the issue is not that some part of the mind is getting foggy or drifting away. The issue is that we get pulled into that gravitational well, and we have no way out of that. Let's see, Ned. Thank you. Let's see here. What is that low humming? The Vagrant says, it's gone now. Well, it's back now, I'll tell you that much. I mentioned this at the beginning of the live stream. We have work being done in the building. It will be present. I just want to warn everybody, it's going to be present for months, probably 2 months. They're doing the entire facade of the building. Now, here's the thing. The facade of the building is 60 or 70 feet this way, and like, it's a whole side of the building. So the building is like, 100 and 200 feet long. But because all the beams are connected, when they drill into the cement, it sounds like it's happening directly above us or wherever. So it's just, I'm hoping that maybe when they get to higher floors, somehow it like quiets down, because they're on our floor right now. But we'll see. It's supposed to be happening for a couple of months. But either way, it's very good for practice. Dimitri says, after the practice and during the practice, I was happy that the concept of time was mentioned. Well, thank you very much. I did a whole half-day retreat on the experience of time and space. I wanted to ask how to deal with time during meditation. I often want to meditate, meditation to end after 45 minutes. So it sounds like you're saying, Dimitri, that you are trying to meditate for more than 45, and yet at 45 minutes the system wants to finish. I believe that's what you're saying. If not, just let me know. You can just fill me in. I think that's the case. So time is just a perceptual experience. That's not to say that there's no matter, there's no time, that science doesn't exist, that kind of thing. That's not what I'm saying. We're talking about from a perceptual perspective. From a perceptual perspective, time is a sort of tug. Or there's a few ways it can manifest. Time can manifest as a kind of tug, and it can be an experience of the sensory system saying, this particular moment, not so important, right? The mind is constantly doing this. This list, I have to cross things off of. It's going to be so cool if I just cross things off of this list. So we're meditating, and it's leaning towards this thing in the future that, could be there. Or it's like, the past, it's in some way leaning towards, forwards or back from the past or future. And devaluing this current moment's experience. So typically, if I were to just give you the shortest answer, it's to observe the sensory experience of that impulse, not only the impulse of the body wanting to move, and look for subtle indications that the body is actually filling with energy in order to move the body. If you ever want to experiment with this, what I call preparation energy in the body, sometimes called intention in Theravada Buddhism, just sit very still, get your body very physically relaxed. It's important that you're physically relaxed. And then without moving anything, without tightening any muscles, just prepare. You can even do it as I'm talking. Prepare to move your left arm. You're going to move it very quickly, and you're going to move it swiftly to touch your right ear. Again, you're not doing it yet, but you're going to prepare. You're going to know that that's going to occur soon. And again, relax the body, relax the body. And in a second, you're going to quickly and swiftly move that left arm. It's going to touch the right ear really quickly. Okay, cool. And then look for a difference of the right side and the left side. Does one side feel more active? Does one side feel more neutral? And in that way, you can detect preparation energy in the body. So look for that, because that's often the thing that makes us really like, oh, I gotta, is preparation energy that's unconscious. And if we can be aware of it, it just sort of dissipates. That's one thing. Patrick joined us on Zoom. Good to see you, Patrick. So I'll be with you in just one second. I just want to finish answering this question. So that's one thing, is look for preparation energy in the body. Look for the mind leaning in time. Like look at it as a kind of pressure. It's like this sort of gripping. It's the mind organizing data and creating this forward motion. Like there's something that's about to occur that's very important. And just noticing that as a organization of time and of space, like just sort of gripping something's important that's about to occur. And then you can use various tricks, like imagine you were just born into this body and you're an alien, and this is the first time I've ever felt the impulse to move to some future moment or this kind of thing, and just observe that. So basically just different versions of observing whatever's unconscious in there. Observing any mental imagery of the mind creating future moments where you'll be able to get up and do things and this kind of stuff. So that's what I would generally encourage or generally suggest. Patrick jumped on the line and then disappeared. How rude. Just kidding. Okay, Patrick's back. Okay, so Patrick, let me make sure your audio is audible. There we go. Will you do a test?
Sure, test.
Okay, you're a little quiet, but...
Oh, hold on, let me try. Let me try again.
I can turn you up too. Go ahead.
I'm just checking which microphone is selected here.
That's fine. I turned it up a little, so you're good.
I didn't really have any questions, so that's maybe disappointing. I can come up with one if you like.
Well, what's coming up? What brings you out this morning? How was your practice? What's going on?
Yeah, so practice has been interesting, because I've got 2 kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of opportunity, a rich cornucopia of opportunities for practice in life. Let's say that. My wife and I are both working from home, so it's tuning in to the streams is really in some sense looking for a little bit of an oasis for the mind in the midst of a hurricane, maybe looking for the eye of the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Sure, absolutely. Some rest,
so
some respite, some
it's
refuge.
Yes, and typically on the streams in the past couple weeks, I'm joining like in the middle of family breakfast, and I'm catching 10 minutes, and in that I'm catching 3 minutes of putting my eyes closed, and then I'm jumping up to get someone's toast, or helping someone find their flip-flops. So that's where I'm at. But practice-wise in general, it's been very good. I typically get up, well before the family, an hour or more before the family, so I'm getting a nice sit in, and it's kept me very much on the sane side of things in the past month, as this has started to play out. And so I guess, as I alluded to on the stream the other day, and just putting in a quick question for you,
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've been in my practice just sort of focused on is, do I just continue where I'm at, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's the dialogue between the less resourced selves that are coming up all the time, and listening to that. This has been a particularly fruitful practice for me in the past few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
As we talked about, I think on the group call before our last one.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been continuing to push on that, and I guess I'll just say in general that practice has been interesting daily. It's been just very, very interesting. I kind of never know what I'm going to get on any given day when I wake up, and right,
Mm-hmm.
which of the selves are going to promote themselves is always an interesting question. And certain other ones that are typically not as active have acted up, and I'm like, oh wow, that's the super annoyed self. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
So anyway, that question, I guess, would be like if there's guidance around trying to sense, on a daily basis, based on which of the selves are showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe trying to think of what's the most skillful approach for for practice. Do I succumb to I need to work on rest, I need to work on calming type stuff because the angry, annoyed people ones are coming up, or do I just stick with what I'm doing regardless?
And Patrick, real quick, I just want to add a question. We're having you just audio right now. Do you mind if you appear visually?
Oh, I don't care. That's
okay.
Fine too.
Just want to make sure you're okay with that. Okay. So, and when you say, should I just continue to do what I'm doing? Is that an example of what you're saying is continue doing the practice around multiple self stuff, or should you do just sort of calming, maybe nurture positive type practices? Is that correct?
In some sense, yeah, and I guess it's more because some days. Okay, so the general practice has been at least one of the sits from the multiple selves, or from the now it's the new and gone, mm-hmm. right? I mean, I've been keeping up with the progress of Shinsight materials.
Just so folks know, Patrick is in a class where we focus on we're doing the progress of insight using Shinzen's material, so that's what he's referring to. So go ahead.
Yeah, so at least, so when I wake up, I'm always starting out with that to make sure that I've got, that I'm getting my, my daily sit and getting a good dose of that, right? Mm-hmm. And some days, I'll just be honest, some days I'll choose a different one that's not this week's one, right? I'll go back and I'll do like, okay, I really enjoyed the second or third in the series of rest. I'm going to do that one today because it just kind of feels like I want some open see, hear, feel, or I want this or that, right? Yeah. So I'm adjusting a little bit, but mm-hmm. in general, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to stick with the material from this week. I'm going to do the new and gone material or meditation. So I'm mm-hmm. always doing one. And some days I finish and I'm like, okay, this leaves me in a place where I feel I'm ready to go with my family and ready to go face the day. Other days I'm like, okay, I want to sit a little bit more and maybe I want to just do some nurture positive.
Yeah.
Or some.
Well, it's so interesting because your practice sounds pretty well balanced, where you are aware of and considering, hey, this is what it seems like I need now. I need a little more of this, and I want to study the material, and at the same time, looks like I could use a little more of this today in that way. Is that about accurate describing what you've been doing?
Yes, I feel like in general, I try to approach the formal practice I'm just going to do this and I'm not going to make decisions along the way. And mm-hmm. then when I get done, I typically I'll allow myself to take a couple moments to reflect on, okay, how was that for me? And, and some days I'll sit there. And so, for example, the positive, nurture positive mantras work really well for me. Mm-hmm. If I'm having a busy, being bombarded type of day, I'm just going to go with may you be peaceful mm-hmm. all day and keep it on the breath or keep it coming all the time. Mm-hmm. And this will help me stay grounded.
Great.
So that's what I've been tending to do is okay, do the base practice, but then also just sort of supplement with whatever feels effective.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds about right. And the way I like to look at it is this, look at it from both sides, whereas one side, imagine you lived, in the Grand Canyon in a tent with a bunch of people who don't really meditate, and you just had to figure out, hey, what's my practice? And at first it'd be hard, difficult. And at some point you just sort of hit a stride and be like, you know what, this is what I'm doing. A little bit of a struggle. I'm going to search, but I have a sense of kind of what I need. You could just imagine that sort of fantasy scenario. And so to take it from the hermit's point of view, what do I need, just adjusting based on what's actually needed. And then at the same time saying, but I do have resources and I can reach out exactly like you're doing now. And I can kind of, say hello and see what might be suggested. And so therefore we have that luxury, but basically, in a sense, learning both skills and learning, like, a lot of the stuff we're doing is just an introduction. So learning really what works for you. Right now, for me, the multiple self stuff has been really, really fruitful. It's been really cutting through a lot of stuff. I've just been like burning through a lot of material, but like internal sort of, purification difficulties kind of things. And it's not that going to be that way for everybody. So it's for you to start to just sense what you're doing. And the sense that I get is you're actually kind of exactly on the right track, and you're checking in to say, like, does this make sense, or do I sound like I'm like way off in some weird direction? Or maybe not. Is it
That's a relief.
Is that
No, that's a
yeah, I mean, it sounds great to me, honestly. And I think one of the things is you have an intense, a lot of us have an intense life situation right now. It's like really a lot happening. Even my wife and I, we work from home most of the time. We also have run a business together from home most of the time. And so this isn't that different for us. It's actually somewhat similar. Mm-hmm. And yet for us, it's even like getting like it's like the anxiety is sort of, just building generally. So,
it is. Yeah,
it is. It's just,
like it's,
go ahead.
It's hard to draw parallels between this reality and like regular life in a sense.
Yep. Well, honestly,
so every day it's kind of
go ahead.
Adapting. So no, it's just every day it seems to be, a new game of adapting to what's come up today. And
yeah. And partially what we want to do is just, it can be, the sound of this can be sort of daunting, but basically recognize that any human being in this situation would likely be cultivating and sort of nurturing trauma, would be actually, developing trauma. Not case point trauma, like one specific thing that was like really scary, but, environmental trauma. So to start to recognize, hey, this is actually occurring, and start to, see what are the things that people do in order to process sort of a slow moving, iceberg of a slow traumatic build. And a lot of that has to do with just the same things we always do, just to do them more intentionally, connecting with other human beings, allowing ourselves to rest, allowing ourselves to not be intentional at some point, just have fun, hang out, talk to people, play a game, be, intentionally inactive. Like when you take a break and you watch a movie, do you really let yourself watch the movie? Or is it a thing that I can tend to, which is like hours of screen time stretched out, like, oh, I'm just going to look at this thing and look at this thing and look at this thing, instead of like, I'm really, really going to give myself a break and I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want for this period of time. If I don't do that, then it ends up being this thing where it happens anyway, but it's bled out over the whole day. And so everything's a little bit more crunchy and like, so things like that, like just treating yourself like a human and treating yourself like someone that you need to care for. You're heavy in caring for others mode. So just remember that the self that operates in there is a self that needs care. And to also recognize whenever a self arises, it's an indication that there's a sense that there's some need not being met. And so partially is to start to identify with that awareness, that big spacious, part that doesn't need anything to be different, as a home, as a sort of what we call true being, as a sort of self that we can rely on in any circumstances, and over time train the system that is an activity or an experience that it can rely on and rest into. Does that make sense?
It's helpful. It's really helpful, and some of it is more aspirational, because sometimes I'm in the thick of it. I don't have access to that. But I have but I'm becoming very aware of the various mind states that are, or something that are kind of, or selves that are in a sense arising. I want to say descending.
Yeah. Well, that's like, but
I'm seeing it's helpful.
Yeah, and that's the first stage. You just see that it's occurring. Just see that this is occurring. No big deal. Yes, of course it's occurring. Then next stage is like recognize it's natural. Of course it's going to occur. Of course I'm going to be overwhelmed. Of course a person in my situation would, have these difficulties. And then from there, start to try to metabolize those with all of our skills, including, fitness and sleeping and making sure we're hydrated and all these bits and pieces.
Yeah, then that's really helpful. And it has been helpful to even just seeing them come in, sometimes having a sense of then why, like you said, there must be some type of need or something, and seeing like, oh, okay, now I'm annoyed about this. That must be,
And just to know
It
that
has been helpful.
I was going to say, and just to know that the need that's being expressed isn't necessarily the underlying need. So it might be like, oh, God damn it, this, drilling or this lawnmower next door, if they just would be quiet, right? It doesn't mean we have to go quiet the lawnmower or go yell at the people. I was walking my dog yesterday, and someone was out there yelling at the construction workers, like, you people, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I have to work. It's like, they have to work, like, it's like, yeah.
You're yelling at the virus is what you're doing.
Exactly. So, and it's fine, people do that, but it's just to know, okay, it's not going to be solved in the outside situation. Often underneath that is like, it's saying I'm scared, or usually the needs are actually, childish, not in a pejorative, but just like so simple. Like, I'm scared, or I don't feel heard, or, like I just want to relax or play or something. And so it's like just to recognize that level of need, and then from there see if we can meet that need. How can we help this self feel heard? How can we help this self feel like it wants to play? How can we let it play? Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much,
really
Patrick.
Helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, thank you. That is very helpful. It's been just very, and I'm glad to hear that you think I'm kind of somewhat on the right track with the approach. It is always, the day-to-day thing is something that I need, I'm needing to make adjustments. And so it's good to hear that I'm maybe, using the right tact toward doing that.
Sounds good. Hey, I'm gonna jump to some of these questions in the chat. Thank you so much for coming on. It's so great to see you. See you in real life. So, thank you, and we'll see you in just a second. We'll be still chatting here.
Thanks, Jonas.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so Landon says, I've been enjoying the IFS presentation by Richard Swartz. Oh wow, that's great. There are so many to choose from. Can you and Raquel recommend some particular ones to watch? Okay, I've been like, Raquel, write this down, because she keeps getting these lists of things. We're going to make a list on our website of IFS resources. Yes, we will. And also the Richard Swartz is great. Let's see. Ones that complement how you are using the material for contemplative practice. What's interesting is that IFS, they actually talk about, like, this is a spiritual solution. They actually talk openly about the idea. I mean, there's a lot of alignment. The only place that it starts to get misaligned is when we start to talk about, again, the language is a little different, but when we start to talk about non-self and some of the more particular Buddhist things, these kind of things. But it's so closely aligned with what we're doing. I think we just get a little bit more into the sort of intensity of the meditation, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of alignment. A veritable vagabond. Can we re-listen to the guided meditation? Absolutely. And this is another question, is my goal to recognize this gravitational pull and bring myself back to the center of equanimity? Okay. 2 questions. Yes, you can listen to the restream, and I want to, Tomalin, if you happen to be there, or anyone on Team Tomalin, if you could just put the link to our YouTube. We're trying to make it so it's automated, so it'll do it on its own, but to the second YouTube. That's where all the playbacks live permanently. So the answer is yes. Yes, you can watch the playbacks. It's on youtube.com/deepmindfulness2, number 2. All of them are there. You can go back a million playbacks. Then is my goal to recognize the gravitational pull of these different gravitational pulls, and then bring myself back to the center of equanimity. I would say that is a skill that one could cultivate. I don't think it's the goal. The goal is so multifaceted that it really depends on what you want. In this case, what I would say is recognize the gravitational pull, recognize when you're pulled into it, what that's like. Recognize that experience as nature. It's, okay, if you're pulled into the experience of a self, and you can check right now, this doesn't have to be hypothetical, how dense is the experience of self right now? Right now I have this mix of sort of an open awareness, and there's sort of a self. It's kind of a little bit of oscillation, but it's pretty soft, the relationship between the two. Just recognize what position that selfing experience is in. Recognize that the one that is more organized towards a sort of center in that way might be it feels a certain way and it has a sort of selfing view, what that's like, what the experience of it is from, let's say, the outside or the more aware self, noting that the awareness is also natural, knowing that the relationship between the two is totally natural, totally fine, it's not a problem. So in that way, allowing the, what was I going to say, allowing all of these pieces to be there, and that will tend to cultivate equanimity, because it's just allowing whatever piece is arising to arise, and we can cultivate hanging out in that more compassionate, open awareness. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit. Dimitri says, thanks. I will try to look up the preparation energy strategy. And I don't know if there's anywhere where that's written, the preparation energy thing. I think that in a lot of some of the energy work things, they'll talk about that of other traditions, but that's just the way that I talk about it, is talking about it as preparation energy. Let's see. Veritable value is the goal to just recognize it? Okay, you just asked the question again. Excellent. Okay, so folks, I'm going to wrap up today. It was so much fun hanging out with you here today, folks over at YouTube, folks over here on Twitch, folks over joining us on Facebook, that kind of thing. Thank you so much. Great to see you. We're having some great guests coming on soon. We're having some great participants coming on, just like Patrick did today. So thankful for that. And yeah, we're just here to have a lot of fun. So join in. We're going to be back here in fewer than 48 hours. In fewer than 48 hours, we can bring our practice right back here, practice some more together, and as always, have some fun. So please, please, please let us know how you're doing. Let us know any questions. We have a Discord, which I'm going to try to copy and paste from above. Again, we're trying to make all of this a little bit more make it work a little bit more quickly. But so we have a Discord, and I'm going to put that in the chat right now. And you can ask questions. You can talk to community members offline. You can ask questions for the stream. If you can't be on the stream, there's a section for questions. You can even get on the line. It's an audio thing, and just talk to other practitioners about their experience. Great thing to do now that we need more and more connection. So you can hop over there. And folks, great to see you. I'm going to put on this I'm going to put on this end music, but I can still hear you here. As always, folks, very lovely to have you here with us. Thank you for the folks who joined. Thanks, Patrick, for coming online, for jumping on the stream here. Veritable Vagabond, Tomlin for your support, Dimitri, Landon, let's see here, Ned, thank you. Rory, of course, as always, thank you. Sher Khan, thank you. Great to have you here. Gabriel, love that you're here. So happy you happen to be able to join. 2020 CL, thank you for coming here. Karen, so many folks. Liz, thank you for being here. Airplane John, great to have you here. Folks, again, great to have you. Looking forward to seeing you all very, very soon. And as always, just let this moment show us something new. I'm just gonna say, let this moment be the leader. I think that works too. Let this moment be the leader. Let it be the guide. And even if there's resistance in the system, and the system pushes back against what we're experiencing, telling us we like or don't like, just to notice that as another manifestation of our sensing. Not a problem. Just another sensing experience. So folks, have a lovely day. Look forward to seeing you all soon.